No one likes change. Well, so we say, and we often hear people say, I don't like change. Then we might hear them say, well, a change is as good as a rest. Or even, it makes a change. Maybe that's when the football team wins. Or maybe when it's a sunny day after a days of rain. We live in changing times, and we often say that. Sometimes we say everything is changing so fast. I can't keep up with these changes. And yet, there is a sense in which change is a constant. It's always happening. What is the reality? You don't have to agree with me. Well, you know that, don't you? But I want to offer a few reflections about change. You see, I think in some ways change is over-egged. It's over-talked about. We love talking about it much more. We love moaning about it. Sometimes we're not so good at celebrating it. But I want to suggest to you that change is natural, it's historical, and it's part of God's plan. It's natural, isn't it, to the seasons? We love the changing seasons. Sometimes we get a bit confused because the seasons seem to get a bit mixed up. But we love to move from winter to spring and the loveliness of spring and the beauty of the summer. It's natural to geography, changing landscapes, from the flatness of East Anglia to the hills and the lakes of Cumbria. And of course our own hills, our own dales here in the northeast of England. It's natural. It's part of life, isn't it? From that time that we actually can't remember, but we know it happened, when we struggled off of our backs to sitting up as babies, to the time, perhaps sadly, all we can do is sit down in our old age. It's natural in knowledge as we grow and understand more in mathematics and science and understandings of who we are. It's natural to God, who is always the same and yet ever dynamic and ever creative. It's natural to the mission of the church. But not only is it natural, it's also historical. We live, we say, in changing times. But who hasn't? Who hasn't? And throughout the centuries there have been different types of change, different types in terms of scale. Sometimes it's incremental, inching forward. Sometimes it's the big revolutionary leaps. And some of those have happened a bit more than we sometimes realise. Changes in transport, in education, in health, in justice, in entertainment, and so much more. I'm one of 5 brothers and sisters, and between us we cover 20 years, from the oldest to the youngest, and I'm the one stuck in the middle, 10 or so years between each. And we meet together. One of the changes that's happened to us, or for us over this last year, is that we meet regularly on Zoom. We would have seen each other 2 or 3 times, if that, a year. And as we talk together more, we talk about our childhoods, and we share our memories of school, of family, and family norms, and even what we had on different days for dinner, and of church and work experience and the age we started. And because some of us were formed in the 50s, and some of us were formed in the 60s, and some of us were formed in the 70s, the dynamic of difference is really quite interesting. There has always been change. Now, Don, get his name right, Bob Dylan is often quoted, that song of his, "The times they are a-changing." Was it prophetic? Was it an anticipation? Was it an observation? I want to just offer a bit of heresy. That change that he spoke about was not new. And it was not new for him, for the times are always changing. We lack historical perspective. Yes, the 60s were times of change, but so were the 1950s that went from rationing to the end of prescription and on into the 60s, where Macmillan said, "You've never had it so good." The 1940s went from the horror of war to health provision for all. The 30s, the 20s, and so on. World War I went from cavalry charges to tanks and air power. within just 4 years. Every decade, every century has seen its own change, and change, if you like, is here to stay, but it always has been. And so I guess it's something to embrace. But not every change is one you want to embrace. Some excites us, some causes us some degree of fear and anticipation. But how it happens and how we respond is really significantly important. The best change must come with a degree of continuity. It builds on the past. Change happens best when there's a sense of security, when there are safeguards to help us make the steps. Remember early childhood. If you can't remember your own child, then maybe your own child or the child of others. Early steps being taken, holding on to furniture, bike rides with stabilisers. Rock climbers will have 3 points of contact as their aim as they progress and they change. We require those things that enable us, support us in change. And good change requires trust in a teacher, a trainer, a pastor, a leader, knowing that they will help us. Change is part of God's plan. It's there in creation, it's there in history, it's there in our personal walk with Him. The things that you and I know and have learned over the years have helped us to change and to grow. Growing is about changing. There's changes in life and mission of the church too. It's part of God's plan. It's an expression of being made in His image, that He is creative, we are creative. We draw on the old, but we bring in the new. It's an expression of our living relationship with God. It takes us on stages and is matched by inner renewal. And of course, for us as an association, for me, there are changes particularly in the air. I look to these coming months of entering into retirement, a new calling, a new phase of my life, and for whatever God has for me. For the association, we've called a new regional minister, Hayley Young, and with Paul and Elaine, others, to help the association move into a new chapter. New opportunities for us all, but it's not all about me. You have your own change opportunities as you'll perhaps look to move back into church, to move into a new chapter, to take the old, to take the learned, and yet to begin a new journey. And as we do this journey, we recognise that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today and forever. He is the Lord of change and transformation. And so we walk into the new, we walk into the change with trust, with love, with hope and joy. God bless you.